I was part of a youth group in my high school years that I largely went to because of friendships and romantic interests. Surely you can't believe in God and be a scientist at the same time. Christians that are worth their salt want to try and give responses to people's questions, because if something is true, it's worth asking questions to find out whether it's true or not.
Serious research has been done on the difference between people who grow up in church and retain their faith and those who leave it. Neuroscientist Dr. Sharon Dirks is a great illustration of one of the most important findings about retaining faith as she made her way to faith. Check out this interview with her. She says some pretty fascinating things.
Actually, my journey, my story is that I have a background in brain imaging, in functional MRI. I did a PhD in that at the University of Cambridge. And spent 10 years in the field of neuroscience. For the last 15, 20 years, I've been speaking, communicating, writing around questions of faith that people have and trying to communicate some of the reasons why belief in God is credible and worth considering. Loved the science.
And she always has neuroscience to fall back on if that doesn't go as well as she hoped.
Sciences. I decided as a teenager that I wanted to be a scientist, and I loved that, and I probably worked a little bit too hard. And I really looked up to my A-level biology teacher, because I went on to study biology, chemistry and maths at A-level, which in the UK are the exams that you take to get you into university or college. And my A-level biology teacher gave me a book by someone called Richard Dawkins, and it was called The Selfish Gene. And this was just a few years after it had come out, and it was obviously doing very well at that point. And I read this book and somehow just absorbed the view that we are just gene machines, that there's just the material, and that's all that it means to be a human being, and that the purpose for our existence is really in passing on our genetic material to the next generation, and the important thing is that our genes survive and make it also.
Which, by the way, is extremely depressing when you really think about it. If that's kind of the whole purpose of life, that seems a little shallow too.
I mean, it wasn't until I arrived at university that they used to put catchy titles, the Christian Union, on the stairs going up to the dining hall. And I would see these, and I'd literally never seen these before. I'm like, who are these people that ask questions about life? Because it just hadn't been a feature of my schooling, my upbringing, certainly not the philosophical questions that you raised. I did have Christians in my life. So I was part of a youth group in my high school years that I largely went to because of friendships and romantic interests. And so, I was just...
Can anyone relate to that, right?
Happy to be part of this group. And for me, it was ticking a box, and maybe, in a funny way, I thought, well, maybe this makes me a more rounded person because I'm checking the religious box. They were kind of astonished when I called them up a few years later and said that I'd become a Christian. So, in my very first week at Bristol University, they hosted an event called Guerrilla Christian, which was basically 4 Christians sitting on chairs in a row and a room full of people who were asking them whatever they wanted. And this was an important part of the beginning of my journey, that asking questions is okay. And kind of Christians that are worth their salt want to try and give responses to people's questions, because if something is true, it is worth, it's worth asking questions to find out whether it's true or not. So I put up my hand halfway through this evening, grilling a Christian, and asked, surely you can't believe in God and be a scientist at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I was given the answer that actually, yes, you can. And saying that science is in conflict with belief in God is a bit like saying that the software programs and processes that undergird Instagram is in conflict with the existence of Kevin Systrom, its founder and CEO. And of course, those two things are not in conflict. In fact, together they give a more complete understanding of Instagram. And if you try and understand it just with reference to the software and the processes, you end up with a diminished understanding. And it's the same with God and science. The study of the mechanisms in the natural world is not in conflict with belief in the one who set it all in motion and continues to uphold it today. And I'd never heard anything like this before, and it really opened up a whole horizon for me of asking more questions and grilling more Christians, which I did over the subsequent 18 months. I spent a lot of time chatting to my then friends and flatmates and roommates about the Christian faith. And we would have conversations on our staircase late into the night. And I also went to a course where I could ask questions, and I probably gave them quite a hard time, actually, just asking. But again, it was a key part of my journey that there were places for me to do that, and there were people that were willing to listen and sit with me and help me.
And that's what's so crucial. It is the ability to ask questions. I love the title and of show up and grill a Christian. And I don't know how many other religions do that or how many other thinkers do that, but just kind of sitting in a place and saying, okay, you can ask me whatever you want. It's daring, but it's also super helpful. Now, at the beginning, we said there's research that has shown what's critical to retaining faith in any kind of environment. And this is one of the passions around One Life Network. We want to be a place where people can interact about these things. You can ask whatever you want, and you're not looked at like you're crazy or something. But the Fuller Youth Institute said it this way, quote, high school seniors who feel the most free to express doubt and discuss their personal problems with adults show the greatest faith maturity in college. They go on to say in their writings, they emphasize that silence or unexpressed doubt is more harmful than doubt per se. And here's my favorite way to say it. They go on to say, it's not doubt or hard questions that are toxic to faith. It's silence. And notice that she kept saying it was so important in my journey just to be able to ask things and even give people a hard time, and they were able to kind of process. But it's not doubt or hard questions that are toxic to faith. It is silence. And so we don't want to be silent, and neither should you. If you're raising kids, or you're exploring, you really truly wonder about these things like science and faith. How do they intersect together? I had never heard the analogy about with Instagram and its founder and all those things, but those things are very, very helpful because the passion around here is to build your confidence in the modern world. And so if you struggle with whether science and faith related issues or more personal related issues, whether it's emotional or spiritual or relational or whatever else, you need a place to open up and talk about those things, because Christianity being the truth doesn't have to be afraid of it at all. And so put things in the comments, ask questions in the comments. We've set up our Patreon now, and we want to offer more and more resources all the time, and you can get in on the conversation on these topics if you'll go there. So I hope you will. Hope that helps. See you next time.